My name is Anthony. My name is Anthony Zepeda, and I will be your moderator for today's office hours. We're going to hold for just a minute or so for more of our colleagues to join us for today's session. In the meantime, I want to invite you all to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name and the region you represent, and we will begin soon. Okay, I think we are ready to get started. Again, welcome to this week's office hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zepeda, and I am today's moderator. If you are just joining us, please go to the chat and introduce yourself with your name and the region you represent. And as a reminder, this office hour session is being recorded for public record. And one other note, HCD policy, we do not allow AI recorders or AI attendees in our public meetings. So please disable your AI recorder, or if you're attending via AI, go ahead and turn that off, please. Otherwise, we will have to remove you. Just want to give you a quick heads up. Next slide, please. How to ask a question. All questions must be submitted in the question box. It's a little button down on your ribbon for Zoom. And please type your organization and your question into the question box. And then the team will read the questions out loud at the end of the presentation and will provide answers, hopefully throughout the presentation in the Q&A box or out loud, just depends on time permitting. Alongside myself today, we have several HCD staff, including ESG representatives, specialists, and management on board, who all can help answer your questions during the Q&A session. And so just one last reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A box. So like I said, there's a little ribbon down below on your Zoom screen. And that's how we track them. If you put them in the chat, they can get quickly lost with the introductions and other chat going on. And we want to make sure we have all your questions answered to the best of our ability by the end of today. Next slide, please. Both the slides and the recording will be sent to participants within approximately 2 weeks of today's session. They'll be posted on the ESG webpage for your review. And next slide, please. And so we're going to jump right into the updates for ESG. These are the general updates before we start the spotlight session. So for the 2024 ESG Notice of Funding Availability that was released recently and the application period closed, we have all of the funding applications available for us now. We are in the process of reviewing those funding applications. Many of you have heard from us as we are requesting missing documents or if we need clarification on certain items in the application. We anticipate a July 2025 award announcements. And for those of you who like to work ahead, you can always go to the ESG webpage, and we have the contract exhibits or the exhibits from the standard agreements, A, C, D, I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but they are there. And so you can go ahead and review those yourself if that's your purview, or you can shoot them to your legal or contracts team in advance so they can get a look at them and we can move that standard agreement process along faster this year. So you have more time to spend that money and get that deployed in your community. Just a little note, dates are tentative and subject to change. Something could come in, might be a little bit earlier, might be a little bit later, but we just want to have that in there so you have a general idea of when you will know about the award announcements. Next slide, please. And now switching from 2024 to the 2023, the existing contracts that you are managing right now, I'm going to send you some reminders on performance milestones. The expenditure deadline for your current 2023 contracts is August 17th, 4 short months away. Time flies. Make sure to have all of your expenditures done by then, as that is the last day that we can accept an expenditure for ESG for this contract period. A reminder that 80% of the contract must be expended by June 17th, 2025. If that seems crazy or unreasonable to you, hopefully it doesn't. But if you're going to have a challenge, reach out to your grant representative or the ESG NOFA inbox, and we will work with you to get that money spent and how we can get it taken care of in your local community. If, on the other hand, you're one of those who've spent all your money already, reach out to your grant representative and inquire about a certificate of completion. Next slide, please. Continuing with performance milestone reminders, just something that is a project manager or a program manager you may have missed, or you don't really look too closely at the contracts at your organization. In your standard agreement, there is language that specifies that grantees are required to submit at least one request for funds per quarter. We highly recommend monthly. And also, if the RFF deadline is missed, we're going to touch on that more in this presentation today. A written action plan must be submitted, letting HCD know that you are aware that you've missed your first RFF deadline and how you will spend the money in the allotted time identified in your standard agreement or contract. The two terms mean the same thing. We use them interchangeably, standard agreement and contract. Once again, questions on this, we can do it in the Q&A portion here, or something real specific for your organization, reach out to your representative or the NOFA inbox, and we can help you with this. Next slide, please. And as a reminder, your ESG team representatives, these are the people that you'll reach out to, Sam, Gio, and myself. And if you're having trouble reaching us or you're not sure who to contact, reach out to the ESG NOFA inbox listed on this slide and also listed on the ESG webpage. There's a link there as well. Next slide, please. So we'll open it up for any questions at this point in time. Anything in the chat box? Take a look here. August, when is the deadline for submitting the final RFF for 2023 contracts? The expenditure date's the 17th. It's about a month afterward, isn't it? Tuesday, Chelsea, Tim?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. The expiration date is 10/15. We will need the last, we haven't given a hard date, but the last RFF will be due probably about 9/15 of 2025. That'll give us a month to go with any back and forth and answer any questions that we have before the expiration date. So I'm probably looking at 9/15/2025.
And
Thank
that
you, Tuesday.
accurate.
Awesome
Yep.
date.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Chelsea.
Oh, no.
No.
And
I'm
I'm here.
that sounds good.
And I'm here, Anthony, if you want me to help you out with the questions.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. And let's see here.
If I'm not, yeah. Oh, sorry. If I'm not mistaken, going back to Tuesday's point, I do believe it says in all of everyone's standard agreements that it is due with 30 days before that deadline.
That is correct.
Thank you both. Awesome. Well, as I mentioned in our intro, we've got the whole team here, so which is great because you can get a lot of your questions answered, and we've got a lot of perspectives here, different ways of answering the questions that are very helpful for grantees. So the second question has to do with the 2024 ESG application. And the question is, can you advise who is eligible to sign as a responsible entity agency official for the environmental review form? I'm going to speak directly to you, Lisa. Lisa, that is determined by your agency. For the county, that could be your program manager for ESG. It could be the preparer, which I believe was you for your organization, or it could be someone in the planning department. It just depends on your organization. Most of the time, it's going to be the program manager or a senior staff member for managing the ESG program. However, you might want to double check just to make sure that your planning department doesn't have to sign off on it, but that's very rare that we run into it, especially since it's ESG, which is generally non-construction, non-infrastructure. So if you want to follow up with me directly on that one, you can send me an email, but more than likely, Lisa, it's going to be yourself or the senior staff who manages the ESG program. And let's see, from an anonymous attendee, if you recall, I mentioned the exhibits that are on the ESG webpage for your agencies to review in advance. And it says the 2024 standard agreement. I see exhibit A, B, D, and E. Is there no C? That's correct. I was trying to remember that if you recall. I was trying to remember. Is there a C?
There is a C, but it's through DGS. So if you look at the standard, if you look at the standard agreement, there is a reference to Exhibit C. So it's through DGS. So you would have to look up the reference.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Well, fantastic. I think that clears out our question queue for the start here. And so now I am going to, you guys bear with us because of technical difficulties with Zoom. I've got to grab control from our Giovanni, who is doing the slide deck, to show you a video from...
Anthony, hold on just a second. Yeah. Sorry. There is a follow-up to that last question from Deirdre or Dee Dee. Sorry, Dee Dee. It's DGS, not BGS. It's D like dog. DGS. Department
of General Services.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, no, that's okay. And just let everyone know, we're a little freewheeling today. I told everyone I wanted everyone to jump in today because we've got a lot of information to cover and it can be a bit technical. So yeah, we'll be jumping in and helping each other all day today here. So on that note, I've got to jump in and share screen because we need to show you a video on rapid rehousing that is on the HCD ESG webpage. So you can always reference this video and show it to your new staff, or it's just a quick refresher. And I am going to hit share and then play, and then we have a video for you.
In this video, you'll learn about the Rapid Rehousing component within the Emergency Solutions Grants Program, or ESG. But first, let's take a brief look at ESG itself. ESG is a federal grant program offered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. It provides much-needed funding so states, local governments, and territories can reduce the prevalence of homelessness, engage with individuals and families living on the street, and place them as soon as possible in quality temporary shelters that offer essential services. The California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, receives ESG funds directly from HUD and administers the state's annual ESG allocation. ESG assistance is flexible and can be used to support a variety of activities under 5 project types or components: street outreach, homelessness prevention, emergency shelter, the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, and rapid rehousing, which is what we'll talk about here. Rapid rehousing activities are designed to move those who are experiencing homelessness into permanent housing as quickly as possible, and to help them achieve stability in that housing. In general, individuals and families who meet the criteria under Category 1 of HUD's definition of homeless, or meet the criteria under Category 4 and live in an emergency shelter or other place described under Category 1, are eligible for ESG-funded rapid rehousing assistance. Category 1 includes individuals or families with primary nighttime residences that are public or private places not designed for or ordinarily used as normal sleeping accommodations. These can include a car, park, abandoned building, bus or train station, airport, or camping ground. This category also includes those who live in a supervised publicly operated or privately operated shelter designated as a temporary living arrangement. In addition, it can include people exiting an institution where they've been for 90 days or less immediately after living in a shelter or place not meant for human habitation. Category 4 includes individuals and families who have no other residence, lack the resources or support networks to obtain permanent housing, and are fleeing dangerous conditions such as domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. So now that we know who is eligible for rapid rehousing, let's see what activities are eligible. In other words, how can ESG funds be used to cover rapid rehousing costs? Eligible activities under the rapid rehousing component include housing relocation and stabilization services, as well as short-term and medium-term rental assistance. Housing relocation and stabilization services include housing search and placement, housing stability case management, landlord-tenant mediation, legal services, and credit repair. The financial assistance provided can be used to pay housing owners or landlords, utility companies, and other third parties as needed. ESG also offers short-term rental assistance for up to 3 months of rent, medium-term rental assistance for 4 to 24 months of rent, and a one-time payment for up to 6 months of rent in arrears, including late fees on those arrears. The maximum amount of rental assistance paid on behalf of a program participant cannot exceed 24 months during any 3-year period. Staff and overhead costs related to carrying out rapid rehousing activities are eligible as well. All rapid rehousing projects funded through ESG must have proper policies and procedures in place. This is because these projects are required to participate in their local continuum of care's coordinated entry process. More information is available from your coordinated entry leadership. All ESG-funded rapid rehousing projects are required to enter data in their local HMIS about all the people they serve. Please consult the ESG program's HMIS manual or reach out to your HMIS lead for details. In closing, we encourage you to read the Rapid Rehousing Policy, which sets out how HCD expects state-funded ESG rapid rehousing to operate. You can also review the Rapid Rehousing Client File Checklist, which details what HCD expects to find in every client file served by ESG Rapid Rehousing funds. You can find both documents on the HCD website, and you can learn more about ESG components in our other videos.
In this All right, I'll stop sharing here. Switch it back to the slide deck with Gio. And there we go. So yeah, that was a pretty good video. It covers the basics and has a lot of resources identified. We're going to go over those in a little more detail now for our Spotlight series presentation. And we're calling it Rapid Rehousing Refresher. And I just had that title in mind because I wanted some of you to try and say that 5 times fast because it's not easy. And let's go to the head and go to the next slide, Gio. So just the next 2 slides, we'll just do a quick video recap. As mentioned, there's a lot of great information in just a short video. We have those on the ESG webpage. We have videos like those for all of the components, in addition to much more detailed office hours presentation on specific components like rapid rehousing. And that is on our YouTube link, which we will put in the chat momentarily. And you can watch the refresher if you need to, which we just went over, or you can dive way down into the details. I mean, a very deep dive there. I think there's one that's almost 2 hours on rapid rehousing and documentation. So it can be very helpful if you're new and you really need to get your feet underneath you with rapid rehousing, because of all the ESG programs, it has the most documentation requirements, the most federal requirements, and it can be very difficult when submitting your RFFs, and we're going to get into that as well. So eligibility criteria, category 1 and category 4, eligible activities, housing relocation and stabilization, rental assistance, and staff and overhead cost. Next slide, please. There are, as mentioned, there are federal and state requirements. Written policies and procedures are required. They have to be approved by HCD. Many of you are going through that process right now. You're required to go through the coordinated entry process with your local COC. There are HMIS requirements. Also with HCD, we need you, as mentioned, to review your standard agreement language. Your contract language has a lot of information in terms of deadlines and dates and expectations, performance milestones, and it is good to keep on track with those so that you don't get a big surprise towards the end of the funding year where you need to spend all your money in a week. Also, there's the ESG rapid rehousing policy. And I'm going to drop all these in the chat. I just need to get a little break here, but I will. And then the HCD ESG client file checklist, which we can go over today as well. Next slide, please. This is just a little screen grab that I grabbed from the ESG webpage and under rapid rehousing. And as you can see, all the links are there. You can see the manual in a PDF form, the checklist, so for your client files or when you're going through and reviewing your RFS. We also have a fair market rent and reasonable certification form and also a policy form. Next slide, please. So having said all that, we're going to kind of revisit this topic, your first RFF for rapid rehousing. We're going to cover it now at the beginning, and then we're going to cover it again at the end of this presentation, just to review. And the reason that we are going into so much detail with this is that pretty much all of the first RFFs that we have received for rapid rehousing have been rejected and had to be sent back to our grantees as they were missing key items that are required in your first RFF. So I just want to reiterate, full backup documentation is required for all line items on your first detailed expense report. So if you submit a detailed expense report that has 15 clients who are receiving rapid rehousing services, we're going to need 15 client files loaded. We'll go into a little more detail than maybe some best practices at the end, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware of this. If you haven't submitted yet, it is full backup documentation is required for all DER line items. You must have approved policies and procedures in place in order to have your RFF approved. So work with us on that if you have not already had that taken care of or have not submitted something. And then also redact all personally identifying information, or PII, if possible, as possible. We would prefer that you use HMIS numbers in the client files. We understand that's not always going to be possible, especially in terms of rental agreements and so on. But to the best of your agency's ability, please redact all PII. And I just want to check something here real quick. Just something I want to bring up. Gio, I'm going to grab control of the screen one more time. And let's see if I can find the right screen, as I have a gazillion open. And if ATCAA is online, thank you so much. We're going to share an email I sent to you this year. This is a standard email that was sent out to all of our grantees back in January of this year. And for those of you who may have missed it, it's the beginning of the year. It's a very long email, as you can see. This lays out all the requirements and any updates and changes for 2024 of these contracts. It's the 2020 can be confusing. It's 2025, or we're talking about the 2023 contracts. And so there is a new RFF form. It has been updated to include indirect cost and some other items in terms of certifying that the RFF meets all the requirements. If you send the old RFF form in, more than likely, we're going to have to shoot it back to you. And we don't want to do that. We want to process your RFFs as soon as we can, get the money to you and get it out on the street, deployed in your local community. But there are new forms that were attached, and we can resend this to anyone who requests it. Your rep can resend it, but we have the new detailed expense report the RFF form. Whoops, back to message. That's slow, too slow. And then any other things that you might need, a budget revision form, your authorized signatures, certificate of completion. But this goes, it lays out the requirements, what must be submitted prior to your first RFF, and then with your first RFF, all backup documentation. And then it goes into a little more detail, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing now, get back to the presentation. But I just wanted to make sure to share that information with you because we realize how challenging it can be because of all the requirements of the rapid rehousing RFFs. All the documentation is required federally and also here at the state level. And so we want to make sure that we cover as many of those bases so we don't have to send it back to you again. Like I said, we want to make sure you get your money and we want to get it to you as quickly as possible. And by covering these bases in advance, it helps expedite the process as we move through. Next slide, please. So those are the requirements for the first RFF. Now, the second RFF and subsequent RFFs, we need supporting documentation only from 2 line items per component. So if you submit for rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, HMIS, we'll need 2. We'll review 2 line items for each of those components, so 6 total, and we'll need supporting documentation. However, the great thing is the grantee chooses which 2 line items. So just highlight those on your DUR if possible. When you send them in, send in the supporting documentation, and we will review them. It's much less work. And it actually works in your favor as you can decide which 2 line items that you can get you got rock solid documentation for it, you shoot it in, and we will then review it in that manner. If it is rapid rehousing or HP, you will need to submit the full client files for those 2 line items, if applicable, if it's not staff costs or something else, but if it's housing stabilization, rental agreement, rental assistance, or something like that, you're going to need the full client file. And once again, please redact all PII. And it's rare, but we do HCD does reserve the right to request additional documentation as it's applicable. It's not always applicable. Next slide, please. So going back to the main point here, ESG rapid rehousing. Submitting a full client file. We have a client file checklist that is based on HUD's requirements, and their requirements are pretty straightforward, but sometimes it can be hard to keep track of them. The client file checklist is an excellent resource because it gives you an idea of what we're going to look at. Your supporting documentation, depending on the nature of the RFF expense, can vary. Generally for rapid rehousing, for assisting one of your clients, it's going to be a full client file, and we'll go on to that in future slides here. But if you need assistance in terms of figuring out what is a full client file, what is the client file checklist, reach out to your representative or the NOFA inbox, or if you're a very independent person, go to our webpage, and the ESG webpage under the rapid rehousing, and under resources under rapid rehousing tab. You can find all of this information and you can download it to your computer. Next slide, please. So continuing on complete client files. Here's a few examples of the things that are required by HUD and also required by us, as we are monitored and for compliance on our files, just like you are monitored by us. HUD does the same thing with us. So the client file has to be complete. That includes fair market rent or FMR certification, the homeless certification, signed and dated, the HMIS report showing entry and exit dates is applicable in terms of exits, rent reasonableness certification, and income eligibility certification. These are just the basics. Those need to be in every client file, including case notes. You might have case notes, include those as applicable. And as mentioned, they need to be signed and dated, as we're going to go through and look at, for instance, rental agreements. And we're going to look at the fair market certification. Was it done in the same timeline? Is is the fair market rent certification from August of 2022, and then the leases from 2021, either they're not going to match. We're going to make sure they match. We're going to make sure the dates are in line with the services that you're requesting a reimbursement for as well. Next slide, please. So continuing, as mentioned, the rental lease agreements, we look very closely at those. It's required both at the federal and state level. They have to be signed and dated by the involved parties. We're going to need copies of rental payments and invoices that you are seeking reimbursement for. There are standard federal requirements that are going to be in any kind of rental agreements, even in California, I know at least, you're going to need a VAWA addendum. You're going to need less lead-based paint notice. And I think I covered rent reasonable certification, but we have it on there as well. It must be really good because we asked for it twice. So next slide, please. So in terms of kind of giving this, a background, annual monitoring is conducted by HUD. It is a requirement on the ESG grant. It's often a requirement on federal contracts. Annual monitoring is when HUD comes in and looks at your files and ensures that they are in compliance with all of the requirements, both at the federal and the local state level, in terms of that grant program. In this case, it's the ESG program. So HUD monitors HCD as we are the state recipient of ESG funds. So we are monitored in the same manner that you're monitored by HCD. And we are required in turn to monitor you annually. It's a federal requirement. And some of you have already been through that. I've worked with you on some annual monitoring of your ESG programs. What we have in an agreement with HUD, we've put our mini monitoring program together. That is where these requirements are coming from. We are trying to identify issues and catch problems while they are small. And we found that it's very successful with our mini monitoring program. So that's why we are looking very closely at your first RFF to ensure that your agency understands the requirements, are dialed in terms of all of the documentation that's required in a complete client file, and keep you on track with your budget and your spending. So that is why the first RFF for rapid rehousing is looked at so intensely. And then the secondary and subsequent RFFs, generally people are dialed in. They then know, okay, I remember that first one, it was difficult, but now my client files are all online. And like I said, it's been real successful, and it's a benefit for both HCD and our grantees because we identify issues before it becomes something big. If in the past, what would happen is we would only monitor someone on an annual basis. And it would be a year after the contract had closed. So, files were incomplete. Folks didn't know about the requirements, and it turns into findings. And that can have a big effect in terms of your funding eligibility on a lot of different federal and state programs. So that is the reasoning behind it. I know it seems onerous at times, and we recognize that, but we also recognize that it is a requirement and we have to do it. And that's why, we're putting so much effort into getting you information and getting you resources, and and letting you know your representatives are here to help you, and we can assist with these. And we realize a lot of things can be specific to your agency or your location, and that's why we're here. We want to help that way. One final note here, we found that a lot of our grantees aren't aware of this, but it's in your standard agreement contract language. It's also in the certifications, comes from the certification in your application when you certify that you are aware of all of the federal requirements and so on. Grantees are required to monitor their contractors and sub-recipients as well. And while it doesn't have to be a monitoring program is as comprehensive as ours or HUD's, you do have to have something in place that shows that your contractors are in compliance with the ESG requirements. If you farm out everything to them in terms of rapid rehousing, then it is your responsibility to ensure that they have complete client files, that all of the required documentation is there and in order, because then HCD will be asking that of you, or HUD will be asking that of you if you were chosen for their annual monitoring program in the upcoming years. So a lot of verbiage on annual monitoring, but really want to kind of give you, set the set the table for, why is, there's just so much to go through. This is why. It's, the federal requirements, the state requirements. Next slide, please. So after all that, I'm circling back here. We're back to the request for funding requirements for the first RFF. If you have not submitted your first RFF for your rapid rehousing, please reach out to your rep and let them know that either you're working on it or you need some help with it. And we would be happy to, because we're getting right up into the deadline time now. It's 4 months away. And we would prefer that we didn't have to get a corrective action plan or a written corrective action plan or how you intend to spend the money. And so please work with us as soon as you can. So going back to the first RFF, full backup documentation required for all line items on your detailed expense report. Rapid rehousing must have approved policies and procedures in place and redact all personally identifying information. Here's a best practice, though, that I've been sharing. We've all been sharing these with our grantees, especially those who may have not submitted their first RFF yet. If you think about it, that first line, full backup documentation required for all DER line items. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I will if you want to contact the ESG NOFA inbox or contact me or your rep directly. But if you read that line and you think about it, full backup documentation required for all DER line items. So if you're submitting a 50-line DER, you are going to have a lot of work, and it will take some time for staff to go through and read and verify 50 client files that may be up to 200 pages a piece. So we would recommend, as applicable for your agency, and if possible for your agency, your first RFF, keep it simple. Don't submit a 50 or 25 or maybe even a 15 line item DER. Keep it simple. 5 line items. They're eligible expenses in the time frame that you're requesting the reimbursement. It's a best practice. It'll save you a lot of work. It'll help you get along. It'll help you get familiar with the process in terms of what is required and how we at HCD will then respond. Once we get it in, we will then ask specific question. What is this for? How does this date line up? And as mentioned, it's a best practice. Keep the first one simple if possible. We realize that there are some agencies that only submit one and it's a big one for the whole year. However, we would, like I mentioned earlier, we recommend you submit them monthly and at least quarterly, but with only 4 months left, we would recommend monthly and to keep your first one as small as possible as applicable. Next slide, please. So for the second RFF, you choose the 2 line items. This could be a 50 line, 60 line DER, that's fine. But you're going to choose, your agency is going to choose 2 line items per component. Choose the 2 line items that you have adequate documentation for. And you have to have it for every item, but choose 2 that you can just shoot in the documentation. We can go through it, complete client file. We can work with you on it. These aren't workarounds. They're just best practices. They're going to make it easier on you. Oftentimes we are going to review a lot more than 2 lines on your DER just to make sure that it is consistent. We're required to. All the numbers have to line up. All of the dates have to line up before we can approve it. But I'm just letting you know that the first RFF, keep it simple. Subsequent RFFs, 2 line items per component. Next slide, please. So these next 2 slides are really just reference slides for you. We list the ESG components, and we list the whether it's rental assistance, since we're talking about rapid rehousing, rental assistance, housing relocation and stabilization services, and we put the X down at the items that are required. On the left, you can see them: documentation of homeless status, at-risk homeless status, income evaluation, rental assistance agreement, rent reasonableness certification, housing stability plan, all of the good stuff that is required in a client file and that you will find on the ESG rapid rehousing client file checklists. Next slide, please. And just a continuation, as I said, next 2 slides, you got your lead-based paint, the VAWA lease addendum, all the applicable VAWA information, and then termination of assistance and an appeal if necessary, notification of termination of ESG service if applicable. Next slide. And so once again, copying a slide from earlier, the ESG webpage resources. Our webpage has everything that we've discussed today listed on the web that you can download, keep a copy, keep a file for your rapid rehousing. We also have this for our other ESG components, but I just want to make sure to share this with you. Next slide, please. And Tuesday has dropped a bunch of the files into the chat. You're welcome to download those. Also, if you want to request them in the Q&A box, we'd be happy to load any policy documents that we have available that we can upload for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to lead the Q&A session.
Thank you, Anthony. We only have a couple so far. So the first one is, are there instructions posted somewhere to explain the process for submitting RFFs? And I don't believe there are, but we would be happy to go over that with you on a Teams meeting or have some kind of meeting with you if you emailed your rep or the ESG NOFA inbox. We would be happy to have a one-on-one meeting with you to go over any of your questions.
Amanda,
yes,
there is the eCivis submitting financial reports, but yes, I would agree that also having a Teams meeting and just to go over that. But there is kind of an external guide for eCivis users, but probably best to do a one-on-one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Gio.
Yeah, and it looks like Tuesday posted the external eCivis user manual in the chat as well.
Yeah. It took me a little bit, but it's there now. But definitely that's something we're happy to get on the Teams call to walk you through.
Yeah, awesome. It's I believe it's chapter section 5 or chapter. It's section 5, I believe, in that guide.
Awesome. Thank you both. And then Dee Dee asked, you mentioned program client file checklists. Where is the financial checklist for monitoring personnel and non-personnel expenses?
I don't think there is that type of checklist, and it would probably be more specific to your agency in terms of the questions that you have on this. We can work with you and put something together, but in general, when we are monitoring personnel and non-personnel expenses, we're going to be, at our level, we look at payroll documentation, we look at time cards. Depending on the nature of the agencies, they will sometimes submit a payroll report for their staff involved in ESG. I'm not sure in terms of, Deidre, what you're looking at in terms of monitoring your subs, but in general, that's how we approach it. And we would be happy to have a sit down with you, over Teams and find out what you might need and if we have something available that we can share with you.
She said monitoring our subs. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
We can either do that via email, shoot an email to us and let us know in terms of, are you looking at their time, how they're spending their time, and is it going to be justifiable in terms of the DER and the reimbursement for the expense, or if you're looking for something more comprehensive, just let us know.
Okay. And then Eva said the VAWA forms have been updated and now are good until 1/31/2028. Do we need all of these in our ESG files or just addendum and it looks like the old forms? So do they need the current forms and addendums, or yeah?
Yeah, we need the addendums. Yeah, we need the, thank you, Amanda. We need the addendums. That's a requirement, I believe, in all California rental lease agreements. But in terms of the older forms, well, I don't necessarily know if we need them. Tuesday, do you have any input on this?
I'm going to try to make sure that I understand the question. We are looking, so California State adopted VAWA as it was put out by the federal government. So California State just looked at everything the federal government put out and adopted it in whole. So that VAWA is required with all leases, whether you're dealing with ESG or not. For the ESG situation, we are looking for the addendum that assists our clients, your clients, if a domestic situation happens in their home, that will help them be able to be relocated into new housing. And in general, it's we have this addendum that says that these clients have these specific rights that are a little more than just the regular VAWA that is required by California State. So I believe the addendum is what we're looking for.
And just to build off that, go ahead.
Eva, if you wanted to come off mute to clarify your question, if we didn't answer it, you can.
Yes, please.
And also, I think I'm sharing screen. I think you guys can see it. This is from the Rapid Rehousing Checklist, client file checklist. And you can see what is right here. Maybe at least the addendum, occupancy rights. So you've got your number here, 80, 82, 83. So you were on the right track.
So, but the HUD forms, the 5380 and the 5382 and the 5383 should be part of the California state lease. It should actually be in the lease itself. The addendum is the thing that's separate that we are asking for. So we're looking for all of those, but the addendum is the specific thing that the item that's specific to ESG.
Thank you, Tuesday. Thank you, Amanda. And did we have any other questions?
Currently, we do not.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Gio. As mentioned, rapid rehousing, it's a bear. It's a lot of information to get your head around, and especially if you're new. So we really recommend that you visit our webpage often and whenever you're working on rapid rehousing to have these resources handy. We've got the videos, we've got office hours training sessions, just much like this one, but even much more detailed. We have all of the links in terms if you need to go look at the federal requirements. We have all of the forms on the page. So please visit the HCD ESG webpage and just scroll through, go to the resources, and then you can go through different components sections and always reach out to your rep. We're always here to answer those questions as well and to give you a little local context. Sometimes it helps talking to a person about how something applies to your specific local situation. That's what we run into most often. We still got a link to the ESG NOFA just there as a reference. The application period is already closed, but we're going to leave that up there anyway. And we always list the ESG program team contact. If you can't reach your specific rep or just have a general question, you're not sure who to send it to the ESG NOFA inbox. That's monitored Monday through Friday during normal business hours. And we usually will respond by at least a day. I mean, usually that's the longest. We usually respond the same day. Next slide, please. And as always, our last two slides, a little more social media influenced. We want you to follow us on social media, like us on Facebook, follow us on X, follow us on LinkedIn. Next slide, please. And as always, we are always looking for those folks who want to join our team. We work with a lot of great people out there, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. Should you ever want to come join our team and work with us, please check out our website, and we always have open positions. We are expanding, and some of you may have heard there's a new housing department, a new division of the housing department opening up. And they're going to be looking for folks too. So always looking for good folks. We would like to thank you for attending this office hour session. The next one will be on 2 weeks, and I believe that is May 7th. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll do another dive into an ESG component, whether it be emergency shelter or homeless prevention, but we're trying to go through these each office hour session to either refresh you if you're a long-term vet and you've worked on these for a long time, or if you're new, to give you resources and just a better comprehensive understanding of the requirements of the program and how you can be successful implementing it in your community. Thank you so much for coming. We will see you next time. And
Anthony,
yeah.
I just wanted to follow up to make sure if Eva wanted to ask any other questions. She couldn't come off mute beforehand. So Eva, now that you can come off mute, did you have any other follow-up questions?
Thank you. We had been waiting because at the end of December of 2024, they were going to update all of the VAWA forms. So I had been waiting. And so now in our files previously, we had 5380, 5382. There's just a new list of them. We've always had the addendum, so that would never change. I just wanted to make sure we didn't, since our files are already 102 pages, I didn't want to add any extra. So you gave me the exact number, so thank you.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Great.
And I think that's it. So with that, we will go ahead and sign off, and we will see you next time. Thanks for attending today's office hours.